You can see Mark Hebscher's right beside me now. He's got part one of a special series he's been working on recently about new immigrants to Canada, and we were talking off air. These sound like pretty interesting stories.
Yeah, it really is. You know, you never know until you talk to people exactly what kind of lives they have.
Absolutely.
And imagine if you will, Nick, that you're being told that you have to leave your home immediately because your country's at war and it's no longer safe. You have to flee to an unfamiliar place where the language is different, the culture is different, and the opportunities are limited. I found out putting together this series that all immigrants are not alike. Many refugees who declare asylum are desperate to come to Canada and thankful that we accepted them. These are the new faces of immigration, a soccer team consisting of young refugees that's so talented they've been invited to play in England this summer as guests of the powerful Arsenal Football Club. This team is known as United FC, which is a fitting moniker for such a diverse group.
I didn't know how amazing this was until now, to be honest with you. Just realizing that we got guys from 11 different countries around the world.
What countries?
On this team. We have Afghanistan, we have Sudan, we have Liberia, we have Ethiopia, we have El Salvador, we have Mexico, we have Colombia, we have Ghana, and you can just go on and on from there.
It's a far cry from a century ago, when most of the new immigrants arrived here from places like Italy and Eastern Europe as economic refugees. They didn't necessarily fear for their lives, they were just looking for a better life. Many were unskilled laborers who performed work that was deemed too dangerous or too dirty for established Canadians. But life was different back then. Early on a Sunday morning, several members of United FC practice on a field that a century ago hosted the Grey Cup. But this is a different type of football, played by highly skilled young men whose future was very much in doubt when they first met 3 years ago.
Most of these kids come from refugee camps, and we didn't see them as people who had problems. We saw them as people who had something that they could use to overcome their challenges. So we focus on what they had rather than focus on what their problems were. But the most important thing is these guys grew up there. Most of them got to the camps when they were 4, 5, 6 years old. So you can imagine what that meant. No supervision, no family, no parent, no food, no clothing, no shoes.
Mohsen Jaffer is 18. He arrived here 7 years ago with his parents, 3 sisters, and 2 brothers.
I came here for education and for a better life, you know, because where I came from, it's horrible there, you know.
He wants to be a professional soccer player, but if he doesn't make it, he has a backup plan.
I would like to be a dentist. Yeah, I would like to go to university after high school, if I had the chance. And I work hard in school, so I think I'll make it.
Leo Johnson spent 8.5 years in 2 refugee camps in West Africa after leaving his native Liberia. When he speaks, the young soccer players pay close attention.
I tried to let them know that I had a choice to be a victim and make myself look sorrowful, or to be a champion of possibilities. Some of them are lucky to have family members and parents here. I've never seen any member of my family for 13 years. I just reconnected with them 2 years ago. So you want to have a conversation about difficulties? Let's talk it, but that's not an excuse. That's a trump card for you to use that experience to achieve what you need to get.
Tomorrow, the story of one member of United FC and his family's incredible journey to freedom in Canada. Mark Hebscher, CHCH News.
So a fascinating bunch of guys out there, clearly in 11 different countries, really interesting. But as far as Canada goes, where do we rank in the Western world when it comes to asylum seekers then?
We used to be like 5th or 6th in the Western world. We're now 3rd behind the USA and Sweden, and taking in more and more asylum-seeking refugees, 33,000 in 2009, about 10% of all refugees that come to this country. And, you know, they show up at the border and they have nowhere else to go, and they fear for their lives.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, some of the stories you mentioned, that one fellow who hadn't spoken to his family in 13 years.
Unbelievable.
Just incredible. All right, we'll look forward to parts 2 and 3.
Good, thanks.
Thanks very much, Mark. All right, welcome back. Mark Hebscher introduced us to his new series on immigrants yesterday. A really interesting story about that soccer team. Tonight, part 2, and you're sort of taking it a little further with one of the players, right?
So, you know, some of the stories that we hear are really incredible when you hear the struggles that people have. And, you know, folks that are in this country are happy to be here and happy to be out of their, you know, their country of origin in many cases. Yeah, Nick, there are many reasons why people have to leave their homeland. Religious, ethnic, and political persecution, civil war, and nowadays, drug wars. Just look what's going on in Jamaica and Mexico these days. Police and civilians being murdered, corruption has taken over, gangs roam the streets. It's certainly no place to raise a family, not like Canada. If Joel Alberto were playing soccer in his native El Salvador, he says he'd be looking over his shoulder, worried about his safety at the hands of the notorious gang MS-13.
It's dangerous, and the gangs right now, like, there's no cops or anyone that can do anything. It's just mostly gangs that control the whole country.
The family decided it was time to go. Joel Sr. had a visa that allowed him to leave the country, but he had to get his wife Ruth, daughter Vanessa, and Joel out of their beautiful but incredibly dangerous homeland.
We got to Guatemala. We stayed there for like 2 days. Then we started the journey through Mexico. That was the worst. Mexico was the worst because that's a lot of corruption over there. So, yeah, it was brutal, and we gotta, you know, jump out of the bus to the bushes or stuff like forest and wait for the next bus. And everything was, you know, connected. You got to pay the next people, you know, to, you know, keep you going.
After a harrowing week, they arrived in Reynosa, Mexico, and the Rio Grande River.
We crossed it in a little floating boat, 10 people on it. Yeah, at 3 in the morning. The first time we were gonna cross it, we couldn't because the drug dealers were using that part of the river.
Luckily, they avoided running afoul of the drug dealers. And once in the U.S., they were met by their contact, who wanted $9,000 to take them to safety in San Antonio. They refused and were forced to walk in the desert with other fleeing refugees.
They say 8 hours walking? Okay, enough. But it become almost 36 hours, I don't know, like a lot. So by 4 p.m. we told them we couldn't, you know, walk with them anymore, and told them to leave us in a place, you know, where migration could cut us, because we were giving up. We were, you know, expecting migration to send us back home, right?
They were exhausted. No food, no water, little hope.
I thought I was gonna die. You know, like, my mom, it was like the strongest one because she was the idol, right? She couldn't, you know, cry. My brother was the guy, right? He was the man. He needed to hold it in together. So only me, I could cry all I want. Like, I was walking and walking and crying, but, you know, like, they were the strongest one. I could be weak.
They managed to avoid immigration and were rescued by a local cowboy who took them in and fed them.
Then our family from Arkansas came to pick us up. We stayed there for a week, and then Virginia, then New York, then Boston, and Buffalo, and we asked for a refugee here.
4 years later, Vanessa has a good job. Joel is going to high school and wants to join the RCMP. Ruth is hoping to work as a hairdresser, and Joel Sr. lost his job as a hydroelectric lineman, but hopes to find work soon.
Everybody, do you know, very kind. When we use the bus driver, oh, come on, good morning, come on. You know, friendly. Yeah, friendly people. You know, in my country is no same.
Tomorrow, how soccer saved this man's life, but killed his father.
Last one.
Just another incredible story of what it takes to get to Canada and what people go through. But, Mark, I really have to admit, I hadn't really appreciated just how dangerous El Salvador really was.
Yeah, it's a country of about 6 million people, over 2,000 murders last year. 2,000 murders, half of them by youth.
Right.
So a real problem there, like second in the world to Colombia as far as murders per capita. A really dangerous place, and as you can see, this family got out of there and are very happy in Canada.
You can understand why.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. We'll look forward to part 3, Mark. Appreciate it.